Hi, and welcome to the Pandemic People podcast. My name is David Roman, and I'm your host. Today is May 9th, 2020, and I've been quarantined for well over 50 days. I have had to go out for a few medical reasons, and because my car broke down, I had to go to the shop. But for the most part, I've been staying home. Strangely enough, there haven't been any new cases in my city in quite some time. The province, on the other hand, that's another story. But it's relatively safe where I live, so the anxiety level has gone down a little bit. However, having said that, I still think it's important to mask up, social distance, do all those things so we can reduce the spread of the virus, because you just really never know when it's going to come back into our town. All right, let's get to business. As of today's date, Australia remains one of the safest places in the world to live in terms of COVID infections. They have just under 7,000 confirmed cases in Australia, and over 6,000 of those people are already considered recovered. This is in a country with just under 25 million people living in it. You could definitely say that Australia has effectively flattened their curve, and parts of their economy are already reopening. However, as safe as Australia is right now in terms of coronavirus infections, my next guest has some other international concerns on his mind. He is currently in the process of obtaining his permanent resident status in Canada. While Canada has not officially reduced its immigration numbers during the pandemic, there are logistical challenges in terms of the speed of the process. My next guest is in dire need of a quick return to Canada, and I'm going to let him explain why. So without any further ado, let's grab those masks, let's pack those bags, and let's head down under. Hi, and welcome back to the Pandemic People podcast. I am sitting here with Shane Joechtl down in Australia. Shane, tell me a little bit about where you're located in Australia.
G'day, David. How are you, mate?
Oh, I'm good. I guess, yeah. I gotta do the whole formal introduction first here, and then the casual stuff. Yeah. No, I'm doing well. How are you?
That's awesome. I'm doing well, man.
Good.
You look very well. Looks like that self-isolation has definitely paid off for you, man.
It's been all right. You know, I get to do some self-care now and then, and I don't get to grow as nice of a beard as you do. Unfortunately, that I don't have the genetics for that.
Yeah, that was just by sheer laziness that this graceful monstrosity appeared.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's actually I don't think in how old am I now? The 15 odd years that I've been able to grow facial hair that it's ever been this fruitful and thick and luscious. But now that it's at this length, it actually takes a lot of cleaning and landscaping, so to speak. So right. It's just
right.
This is the self-isolation beard. So
I know I actually started growing like quarantine facial hair at the start, and then it just looked terrible. And I was telling myself, oh, I'm just going to let it go entirely and just see what happens, because I have terrible patchy genetics, right? and then by the time I got partway through it, I was like, no, I'm good. I don't need that.
Again, it takes a lot of patience, because then you've really got to shape it and form it. Otherwise, it's just like, you kind of look like Hagrid almost. So.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, besides my beard, besides my beard envy, I was going to say, what's going on down there? Where are you at?
Mate, I'm situated in Newcastle, which is about 2 hours north of Sydney on the east coast of Australia. So Sydney is obviously the capital city of New South Wales, and then Newcastle is the second largest city in New South Wales. So just bunker down in the suburbs of Lake Macquarie. Macquarie is actually, I think, one of the largest saltwater lakes in the southern hemisphere. So it's a beautiful spot, beautiful area. It's really a unique spot, because you literally drive 5 minutes and then you have all the pristine coastline beaches that Australia is naturally renowned for. And you can go as far inland as you want to head into some really nice bush kind of environments and whatnot. So you're kind of blessed. You have a lot of different terrain, and but yeah, the lake is literally like 2 minutes from my house. So we do a lot of boating and fishing, which is quite nice. So pretty blessed in this part of the world, that's for sure.
Is that still available for you right now too? Like, are you able to go access the lake and do the things you like there?
Yeah, so funnily enough, when the pandemic kind of broke out, the governments and everything were kind of putting their heads together to try and come up with action plans and keeping all those sort of essential businesses and essential services open. And with that, Australia being one of the largest sporting countries, I will say, in the world,
right?
A lot of the recreational sports and whatnot, they didn't fall into the kind of essential service category. And I don't think that actual rule was kind of implemented at the moment. I think there was rumors of it happening, and then there was just a gigantic uproar from people. And I think that all stemmed from escaping the house to do some kind of physical activity or just a lot of people do need that kind of release or that escape from day-to-day life just to unwind. And I guess boating and fishing definitely falls into that category. So they actually did, I believe, cancel out any sort of recreational fishing or boating. That was actually one of the new laws that the government's implemented. But then due to sort of popular demand, I guess, and a bit of an uproar from people, that was actually reinstated a few weeks later, I believe. There are rules. You have to be with, I think there's two people maximum on a boat.
Okay.
And it has to be, I guess, like an immediate family member or someone you live with. You're not just going to go and pick up someone, one of your friends that's living somewhere else or isolated someone else to be in that sort of 1.5 meter radius. So there are those sort of guidelines and rules still implemented. But for my dad works real hard 5 days a week, and he usually uses that sort of, fishing or boating or being out on the lake as kind of a release from a busy sort of week. So he was pretty disappointed when that law sort of came through. So he was when that was reinstated to go out, have your fun, abide by the rules, and he was pretty stoked. So yeah, still able to fish, which is nice because we definitely have the resources for it here. So
yeah, and if all the activities to allow, I mean, that one's probably a little less risky in terms of you're in the open air, and like you say, if you're strict the amount of people on a boat, there's a lot less chance for contact and those kinds of things, right? So
100%, yes, yeah.
Yeah, we actually here in Saskatchewan, I think this week, the first week of May, we're reopening boat launches, or it's very soon. I can't remember the exact date, but that's coming back. So, mind you, we're in the midst of a pretty severe outbreak in the north here. So we'll see what happens. But I think I was reading the news today that things are pretty good in that region, right? That there's not a lot of cases, if any, right now happening. Is that true, or is it pretty low?
Yeah, you're pretty spot on the money. New South Wales is actually one of the worst states in the country for testing positive to the virus. We are one of the busiest and more high populated states in Australia. So naturally, coming into contact with people is going to be more common than those sort of less populated states. Right. So initially when it broke out, it was pretty crazy. We were having sort of, 7 to 8 to 15, people testing positive to COVID-19 within a 24-hour period. So, every time you listen to the news on the radio or TV, you'd hear, that number sort of increase every 24 hours.
Oh, geez.
And then I think the government kind of took a step and decided that this was kind of getting a little out of hand. And I think with the state governments and also the federal governments came together, and that's where all the restrictions came into play. And we really did see that curve flatten. And it's a credit to the people of Australia, because, I mean, not everyone, but, like any country, but a vast majority of people, took the restrictions seriously, and, they really abided, and, they were cautious, and, I guess with, people sort of sharing their experiences with COVID-19 and those that tested positive. the symptoms and the general sort of feeling of having that COVID-19, I don't think it was very pleasant, or is very pleasant to have. I think it does affect people in different ways, but reading some of the stories of people who did test positive to the virus, it was I definitely would not like to have it. It sounds terrible. So fortunately enough, a lot of people in the state and also in the country have really knuckled down and have taken this pandemic quite seriously, and have taken the restrictions quite seriously. And I think that's why we are sort of coming to a point now where we have naturally seen some of those restrictions recently lifted. Like you were saying before with the boat ramps and whatnot, we're actually now able to socialize. There still are restrictions to that. So you can now socialize with 2 adults, which is fantastic. So,
interesting.
So it's sort of gradually, that leash is starting to get released a little bit. So we're starting to get a little bit more freedom again. I guess my biggest concern is people don't take advantage of that. Now that things are starting to get better and things are starting to, become lifted in terms of restrictions, I really hope that people don't take advantage of that and sort of start abusing that freedom again, because that's when we'll start seeing the cases start becoming more and more frequent of people testing positive again. So.
Yeah, and we're in a very similar, no pun intended, a very similar boat that you are. Yeah. Today's May 4th here in while we're recording, and this is officially the day of phase 1 here in Saskatchewan for reopening our economy, and so certain businesses are being targeted and allowed to function again with certain restrictions. So I can definitely say in the last 4 or 5 days, this is anecdotal, but I've definitely witnessed a lot more relaxed behavior than what I was seeing before, which does concern me, because you're right. Like, it really just takes one case and then a bunch of relaxed people for us to suddenly be right back to where we were. So yeah, that's definitely a concern on my mind here too. But I will say something about your country, and it's quite amazing. I was reading really intently today about what's going on there, and I mean, what your country has, it's 25 million almost people there, right? And like this past Friday, May 1st, they only reported 16 new cases in the entire country. And that's that's insane, to be honest, the percentages. When you compare that to some other countries that are just being absolutely demolished by this virus, where they're having tens of thousands of cases sometimes pop up, within a week kind of thing. So it's
been crazy. Like, I mean, you look at what's happening, overseas in Europe, Italy, I believe, New York as well in the States, and a few other states within America. I just, it's all in the news here. You just see that, if anything, the virus seems to be ramping up there. So in Australia as a total, I believe we've had 6,800 positive cases, which as a country isn't too bad, considering the population. It's about 25 million, and out of those 6,800 cases, I believe it was 5,800 have been since cured and cured of the virus. And I think we've had about 70 deaths. 95 deaths. And a very high percentage of those deaths have unfortunately been those high at risk. So the elderly, so kind of 70, 80 and over. So that's where a lot of those deaths have come from, which, again, we were warned about those, that generation of the older folk, being more at risk for it. So, in fact, New Zealand, our neighbours across the ditch.
Across the ditch. That's
across
great.
The ditch. That's a terminology that we Australians and New Zealanders have for each other. So, the New Zealand Prime Minister, Jacinda Alston, I think her name is, she's been absolutely fantastic. So she is one of the, I think she's been deemed as like the most effective kind of leader in the world during this pandemic. I mean, naturally the country is smaller and there's less people there, but she has shown insane empathy. She's actually been with the people, if that makes sense. So she's not like, I guess, a lot of the leaders, like our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, who faces the camera every morning and points his finger and kind of tells us what to do.
Yeah. We have something kind of like that here. Not quite, no pointing, more just talking moistly. Yeah. That's all we have in Canada, but yeah.
But no, she's really sort of led by example. Because when you think about it, being a world leader or a prime minister or president in this time, the burden and pressure of that is I can't even begin to fathom that. For us, for example, in Australia, we've just come out of the worst summer in history with bushfires. So since probably October last year, it's been hellish in Australia. So we've had the worst bushfires in history, wiping out, large numbers of rainforest and animals and small country towns. Just the effect and devastation it's had on the people. Then we've gone into some floods. We've had floods.
That's right.
In some parts of Australia as well. And then obviously we break out into the pandemic of COVID-19. So we haven't really had a rest for quite some time. And a lot of that is affected, those small country towns, the small businesses. And I'd like to think that our Prime Minister is just, he's doing a much better job with the virus than what he did with the fires. So he kind of took a brief little holiday to Hawaii during the bushfires, which
are you kidding me? Oh my God.
No. So that didn't necessarily go down too well with the country. He sort of lost a lot of respect to it, but he's being very proactive with the pandemic. So I think he's learned his lesson now. But he's really pushing. They've actually brought out an app, a COVID safe app that you download on your phone. I'm a little bit skeptical of it, but the more I'm reading into it, the more it's sort of standing out to be a good idea. So they've actually brought out this app that you have on your phone, obviously, and you keep your Bluetooth on, and essentially the government tracks the contact of people you have. So if you've come in contact with someone that's been tested positive for coronavirus, or maybe 3 or 4 meetings down the track and they've been in contact with someone with coronavirus, then it'll actually alert you that you've come within contact of someone with coronavirus. So, I kind of thought it was a bit of a scam to get the government to kind of see what you're doing and what you're up to and, reading your messages and stuff like that. But you never know. But when I'm reading into it, it does seem like a pretty good idea, just to, as these restrictions are lifted and people are sort of getting a little bit more sort of freedom, it's a good way to just keep an eye on the virus side of things, because it's all well and good to socialize, but I could go and see my brother who lives 20 minutes away, who is still working. He could have come in contact with someone through work, because obviously he works in a paint store, so he's a store manager there. So, come in contact with customers and clients. As far as trying to keep that 1.5 meter sort of distance, that safe distance, sometimes it's a little difficult given the situation. But so he could have come in contact with someone, and he doesn't know. I don't know. My parents don't know. So I think it's a good way to alert people of who you've been in contact with in the last sort of 30 days even, because sometimes the virus doesn't rear up right away. So.
And I know that was two of the things, some of the articles I've read about Australia, the two things that they attributed the success to were the tight restrictions with travel and shutting the country down and those kinds of things. But then the other one was definitely increased testing. So contact tracing is part of that, where you're tracking the virus, you're testing the right people. I personally I would assume that having an app like that is going to be helpful in that regard. I know some people are really worried about the nefarious nature of being tracked all the time. Some people don't even want to wear a mask because it restricts their freedom. Yeah. So anyway, I think a lot of the success from what I'm hearing is based on those things. What kind of things do you think it's like? I know you've mentioned a little bit of what it's done to your daily life, like in terms of, wanting to go use the lake and those kinds of things. But is there anything else? Like, what kind of things are Australians like yourself kind of experiencing because of restrictions and changes? What kind of things are you kind of missing, or has it been hard to get things? That kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. So as I mentioned before, Australia being renowned to be, a sporting nation, it's been quite difficult for not chucking on the TV on a weekend and seeing all the sport on, and being able to follow the sport even internationally as well. I know a lot of people are kind of finding that difficult, and just touching on that too, the National Rugby League tournament just started. I think it was two weeks in when they had to cancel put a pause on the season. And now a band of people came together and because they wanted it to come back, because it's a business essentially, and obviously without the broadcasting rights and everything, the business was going to go under. So somehow they've managed to persuade the governments and health officials and whoever, by still abiding by certain protocols and guidelines and restrictions to keep safety first and foremost paramount. They've somehow been able to have a resume date on the 28th of May. Now, all that is very exciting for Australia and for sporting nutheads like myself. Some players have already abused that situation, and now they're having gatherings.
I saw that. Yeah.
Oh man,
I saw that in the news. Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. To basically have. I'm going to say luck. I mean, you look at all the local businesses, regardless of how big or how small, that have gone bankrupt or gone under because of the pandemic. And this, business, even though it is a higher profile business, has been able to come back and have a resume date under following protocols and restrictions. You have a group of 3 or 4 players and high profile players too, might I add. So they don't go under. They don't go under. They're high profile. So
they're being followed. Yeah.
100%. They've gone out and straight away done the wrong thing, which is insane. Like it's just a brain explosion. I can't fathom the reasoning or the decision making processes behind that. One player had like 5 or 6 girls over his place, and there's a picture of them all sitting on the couch. And I can tell you the couch is probably a 2-seater couch, and there's him and 4 or 5 girls on the couch. So, and then they did a TikTok video, and there's obviously no restrictions or no care or thought processes put behind that. So, straight away they put safety of people and the governing officials who basically said, yeah, you can come back and play the sport following these restrictions. They've almost cost, I believe, the NRL $200 million. And obviously, bankrupting the business. So that was an interesting bit of news that recently happened here in Australia. But, for a lot of people, there are a lot of, small cafes, small restaurants, businesses, within my suburbs and my community. So, fortunately, they've been able to remain open as a takeaway service. So supporting local businesses has been huge. A lot of people have rallied behind that, and they are, going down to the local cafe and getting a takeaway coffee, and, obviously still abiding by those 1.5 meter, safe distancing restrictions. A lot of people have unfortunately lost jobs. I myself did or was sort of temporarily laid off. I was a casual while I'm staying here. I was a casual working in a retail sports store. Okay. And unfortunately, the first point of call for the COVID-19 in terms of retailers, I think all casuals were temporarily cut out of any sort of future scheduling or whatnot. So so I pretty much lost my job for a bit anyways, and but fortunately enough, I was able to pick up some building work with my dad. As I mentioned before, my dad's a builder. So I was still able to get out of the house and, get some fresh air and, and work and earn money, which was important. But there are a large amount of people who haven't been as fortunate enough as myself in my situation. So, but yeah, a lot of people are doing it tough, and actually in saying that, last weekend I was able to go back to that sports store because some of those restrictions have been lifted. So I had my first shift back there for a few months, which was fantastic.
Really?
So,
okay.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting to see, for myself, I didn't think it was such a big deal, but not having sort of human interaction with the outside world like you do with serving in customer service and retail. I miss that so much.
Yeah.
Because usually I'm just sort of talking or sort of, face-to-face contact with, family and that's pretty much it. So, so to have that, have that experience again was quite nice after the few months of being sort of, locked away. But, it's really is affecting a lot of people. A lot of people that use, as I mentioned before, again, sports and physical activities as escapes, like gyms, swimming centers, even just weekend sports and recreational sports, all that's sort of been cancelled. And I think they're just recently now talking about slowly putting protocols in place to slowly start reopening that again, which will be fantastic. I know a lot of people have sort of struggled with the mental health side of things.
Yes.
I unfortunately know of an acquaintance who lost a friend to it, which is quite devastating. And looking at numbers as well, there's actually been too many people that have unfortunately taken their own lives due to just the mental strain and whatnot of the pandemic sort of brings. So I myself, even just, staying inside for 2 days, I could sort of start, feeling within myself, I was, declining and, kind of becoming, miserable. And, you could just start feeling that sort of dark kind of, overwhelming feeling just from literally being inside for 2 days. So, you could really just, pick up a holy, crap, I need to sort of do something about this. And, for myself, I started, just researching, some physical activities that I'm able to do at home and some exercise that I'm able to do at home. So I've been doing that. And as I mentioned before, the fishing, and really just never thought I'd say this, but I'm really embracing, working, just from being able to leave the house. So, I mean, outside of working and staying at home, this is actually the most I've dressed up for any occasion in the last sort of few months. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's one of the reasons I love doing this podcast for two of the things you mentioned there, for the human interaction part. And, that helps my mental health. And also, like, you're right, like having something to like prepare yourself for rather than just,
absolutely,
being unshowered and wearing no pants all day kind of thing. So
I know. I won't show you underneath the waist, but this is the party on top, which is all you'll see for now.
That's all you'll see. Yeah. It's that kind of show. Well, so speaking of some of that stuff, first of all, with the mental health thing you mentioned, one of the big things I always think about is, the numbers that we have for coronavirus right now are just strictly about the virus and its impact. But, the people who aren't getting included in those numbers are the people who, like you say, who are taking their lives, people who may have passed away from other things because they didn't get access to the healthcare they needed, all that kind of stuff. Those numbers aren't necessarily going to be accounted for in the official count. I mean, there might be some studies done by some social science people to illuminate that. Hopefully there will be, because I'd really like to see that impact. But for yourself, there's kind of maybe an addition to this, and this is our segue into kind of talking about this, is obviously, I mean, our listeners don't know much about our background, but obviously I know you previously because you lived in Regina for a little while. So you're I guess at one point you were planning to be a landed or a permanent resident. Is that something you applied for here? Is that correct?
Oh yeah. It's been been a hell of a journey to be honest. Yeah. So obviously I came to Canada in 2017. It was a spur of a moment decision with with one of my best friends. Her and I were having a bit of a tough run here in Australia, and we just figured let's just go. So we ended up booking a one-way ticket to Canada, and
wow.
Yeah, it was a big step because I sort of never really envisioned my life to sort of take me that way, but it's like we're experiencing right now. You simply don't know what life will throw at you, and yeah, and I just love, well, still do. I love Canada. I just fell in love with it right away. We based ourselves in Vancouver for it was about 3 weeks, and we did some traveling. We spent a week on the road traveling around the Rockies in Alberta.
Oh, nice.
And I just fell in love with the place and the people. I guess a lot of people don't, or they may realize that Australians and Canadians are very, very similar in a lot of different things in terms of people communication and mannerisms and how we're polite and we're friendly. So just being able to witness that in another country when I was kind of just up in the air. I didn't know where I was living or where I was working. It was just more of a take it as it comes kind of holiday. But fell in love with the place and the people. And then I lived in Alberta, in Banff, as most Australians do.
Oh, really? That's their place?
It's either there or Whistler. So.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Whistler's like an Australian country within Canada. I keep this brief, but I was there snowboarding for about 3 days, and I did not meet another nationality there. Whether it was at Starbucks, at the grocery store, restaurants, on the slopes, everyone was Australian. So
wow, that's
that
amazing.
Wanted to leave someone that wanted to leave Australia and experience a different sort of culture or whatnot. It was not a sort of good place to be because I pretty much knew everyone already. So so I moved to Banff, which there are a lot of Aussies there, but there's also, I find, a lot more I guess different people from different countries, so it's more diverse. So I met Germans, I met people from Sweden.
Oh wow!
I met people from Japan, people from France. It was nuts. So and then long story short, I met my partner, who is a citizen of or a resident of Regina, we kind of hit things off, and sort of long distance wasn't really in our plans for a relationship, obviously being 9 hours apart from Banff to Regina. So it got down to the point where, we were to either just end the relationship or, one of us had to move, and she has a very stable job and a mortgage, family, friends, dogs, blah, 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 blah. And all I had was a suitcase. So it kind of made sense for me just to pack it up and hit the road. So I ended up moving to Regina in 2017 in September. And I've been living there ever since. And, obviously with my partner, we, started building our lives together and established, we sort of, just fell in love with one another even more. And we're actually expecting our first baby.
That's right. Congrats. Big congrats.
Thank you. So that's coming 10th of July. So I had to, due to immigration issues, basically it all started a few years ago when my my temporary residency permit was coming to an end. So that was over 2 years. And that was coming to an end in 2019. So a little bit before that, I was researching, trying to find the best ways, immigration-wise, to be able to stay in Canada, obviously with my new family and my new home. And I actually received some misleading information from an immigration agency. So that kind of put me in a very tricky position because, as I mentioned, my work permit actually expired. So I was I had to stop work. I had to basically, just stop earning an income, which was quite difficult. Wanting to help, pay the mortgage and, buy groceries and pay bills and stuff like that. So, so basically I was looking at all different alternatives. My employer at the time tried to sponsor me, which ended up falling through due to I think I didn't have enough experience in that in that sort of current position I was working for.
Right.
Because I was only there for, I think, 4 months and I needed 12 months of experience. So fortunately that didn't work in my favor. And it kind of got to the point where I needed to maybe come back to Australia, to home, sort of get a bit of my sanity back, and sort of, try and earn some money and hopefully try and work something out from here. So that's basically what I'm doing. As I left the door in Regina to come back to Australia is when we found out the news that we were going to have a baby. So you can imagine the mixed emotions of, leaving my girlfriend and not knowing when I'll be able to come back, and, leaving, my sort of life behind kind of thing. But then to throw in the mix that we're going to have a baby. So, in my situation, again, everyone's had a different story throughout this whole process. There was a lot of mixed emotions for me, and, just to try and process all of what was going on in my life at that time was,
for sure,
it was very difficult and very overwhelming, to say the least. So I, basically got back on the 5th of November, came back to Australia and jumped right into work and, jumped straight into immigration. And for now, knowing that I've got an actual timeline that I need to be back home for the birth of my first child, I thought it would be wise to get immigration lawyers involved, which I have. And as of actually, it's been a process again. Naturally, dealing with immigration, it is always. Yes. So I successfully, my lawyers, successfully submitted my application to the Consulate of Canada in Sydney. Essentially, the hardest part has been done. And now we just have to wait. So because I illegally stayed past my cutoff of my work permit when I was in Canada, unintentionally due to misleading information, I had to apply for a temporary resident permit, which allows me to be able to come back to Canada and not get waived or flagged for any sort of illegal immigration activity. So that's what I've currently just done. And then once that's all processed and I'm able to come back to Canada, is when Alyssa and I are going to go through the spousal sponsorship. So she's actually going to sponsor me. Oh, great. Which in turn will get me permanent residency within 12 months. So fingers crossed. We've only got 2 months to go before the big D-Day is here.
The big day, the big dad day. Yeah.
So yes. So essentially, I would love nothing more to be able to be there for it. But so already my back was against the wall, and then the pandemic broke out, and I actually gave up. I thought there's no chance I'm gonna be there for it, because all the borders and flights and everything just shut down. So, but upon doing some research and everything, and now with some bans and restrictions, being lifted, I will be able to fly back to Canada when I get the approval. And I'll obviously have to go into the 14-day quarantine period. So, doing all that, touch wood, if the gods are in my favor, I should hopefully be there for the birth. Mm-hmm. So that's my story. But and again, everyone has their own story of how everything that's going on in the world around us right now is affecting them. So it's been tough, man. It's been a tough little sort of 9-month period, I guess.
For sure.
But credit to Alyssa, my partner. She's given a first pregnancy alone, not being able to socialize. Partner, myself's not there. She's just triumphed through it. She's she's made it look actually really, really simple from here. Upon discussion with her, it hasn't been simple, but she's really just motored through it, and
Right.
A credit to her, given the situation. It would have been pretty scary and stressful, but she's just owned it. So I'm really looking forward to getting this all finalized, and being able to jump on a plane and head back and see her and see the dogs and the family over there, and get excited and start preparing for the little bundle of joy. So yeah.
That's right. Start getting ready to not sleep for another couple of years here. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, we have a little one in our house who's almost a year and a half now. So I can speak from experience. But
yeah.
So and that was one of the big things. One of the reasons why I want to talk about this, kind of relating it back to what we were talking about with kind of not being able to see people and the mental health part of it is definitely. I think you're in a very unique situation in terms of your distance with the people you want to see is across a vast ocean. Never mind myself, who I'm I'm missing my parents or my brother or whatever. Like I can still go wave at them at least. I can still go do that, and even though that's not quite the burst I'm looking for mental health, it's I guess it's something. So I think your situation is very unique, and I think it's important to let people know. This is another way that the pandemic does affect us, because I'm imagining the processing of your application is probably impacted by, in terms of time anyway. I'm assuming it's impacted by this whole thing.
Yeah, well, a lot of the stuff, and especially now that lawyers have done their part and they now have to send it to the consulate, that gets mailed by mail. So it's not an email, It's not a fax or whatever. It's actually getting mailed.
Oh wow! And we were talking before the show about the boats, right? So it's going on the boats? Is that it's getting mailed by boat?
I think a courier is actually taking it, thankfully.
Okay.
So that was sent in Canada on Friday, and we're expecting hopefully that'll be here by the end of the week, which is a pretty good turnaround given the circumstances.
Yeah.
But I've sent things to Canada. And there's a list of countries that Australia express post to via plane or via air, I should say. But one of the countries that isn't on Australia's list is in fact Canada, and which is weird. But
that is strange.
Go figure. Go figure. So my package that I'm sending to Canada is getting delivered by sea. So to put in perspective, the last communication I received from Australia Post was in fact on the 9th of April that said that my parcel has left, Sydney. And it's now the 5th of May here now. Is that right?
It is May 4th.
Is it
I guess for you,
May
for you
4th,
it's the 5th. For you, it's the 5th. Yeah.
Fifth here. Yeah. Time travel.
Cinco de Mayo over there.
Thing.
Yeah.
So we're now into the 5th of May. So and I still haven't had any sort of communication. So it's almost been a month, and like we were talking about before we went on air, is I guess with the restrictions and the pandemic that they've tried to sort of continue the mailing process and everything, but with basically very limited resources. So, obviously a lot of businesses and companies have had to lay people off, and so because there's very minimal flights leaving Australia to go to Canada, and I'm assuming they're using passenger flights, it's very limited, and obviously no one's traveling because of the restrictions. So I'm assuming that there are very limited, if zero, planes leaving Australia to go to Canada at the moment. So therefore the mail has to go a different route, and that's via sea, which naturally takes a hell of a lot longer. No, it's never in my lifetime have I ever even stopped to consider that we or myself would be in this position.
For sure.
Crazy times, and it really sort of puts a lot of things into perspective. Thinking, I mean, obviously I've gone through life and there's certain things that I, cherish and appreciate, but there's also a lot of things which now I'm realizing that, I should have, maybe taken a little bit more, appreciation for, because, obviously now we're so restricted to literally everything we can do. And, we really have sort of had a lot of our, freedom taken away from us. And, just sort of steering back to the mental health side of things. As you mentioned that, there's a lot of facts and figures about the pandemic and about the virus and how many people have been tested positive, how many people have been cured by it. But, there's not too many, facts and figures out there about the people that are actually struggling because of the resources and the freedom and everything that's been sort of taken away from them, including an income or jobs or whatever it is. So, they're fighting, I feel like a much difficult fight, because they're not only fighting the pandemic, but also fighting with the mental illness and mental health struggles. So, and speaking from my personal experiences as well, I'm one of those people that do have some mental health issues, and certainly with the immigration stuff, then the pandemic and everything, it's definitely sent myself into a bit of a spiral kind of thing. With
I feel
just even so even like a lot of people struggle with not necessarily being in control of their lives. So with all the uncertainty around surrounding the pandemic, it's I can really sympathize with those people who are struggling, because they can't control what's going on around them, and a lot of people actually do struggle from that. But and the good thing is Australia's actually, and I'm not too sure on other countries, but Australia's really sort of pushed and realized that this is bigger than the virus. So there's actually a lot more people out there struggling with other things on a bigger scale and a larger scale because of the pandemic. So essentially in some cases the pandemic is just the start, and it explodes everything else around it in terms of like mental illness and mental health and whatnot. So Australia's been fantastic. They've actually really implemented some health officials who have come together. Every second ad you hear on the radio is to do with mental illness and mental health and anxiety and seek medical attention, because it's still there, because you can't maybe go and have a face-to-face appointment with your doctor or whatnot. It doesn't mean you still can't talk to your doctor. So I know a lot of people who have had sort of Zoom calls with their doctor and with psychologists and whatnot, which has been fantastic. I've been sort of trying to do, my best to reach out to people and keep in contact with those people. I've also received a lot of, messages and texts on social media, whatever, from people who are, concerned and asking how I'm doing, which, and that's the smaller stuff that I really appreciate, because a lot of people sort of feel like they're secluded from the world and they're alone, but in actual fact, they're really not. And so those awesome people who reach out and stay connected with those people, or their buddies or their friends or parents or whoever it might be, they make a huge difference. But it's also fantastic that the Australian government is really pushing these awareness sort of ads, especially in a time like this, where I feel like you will see more and more cases, spike because of what's happening around the world. So it's been really awesome to hear and see the differences I feel that has made, because I'm not too sure what it would look like without those awareness ads or people being genuine and nice and caring and checking in, because I think we probably would have seen a much higher number of those people that unfortunately took their lives. So there's already been too many in my opinion because of the pandemic. But yeah, it's definitely tough, and we're all trying to do our part to stick together and keep that 1.5 social distancing. But it's very easy with today's communication and today's technology to drop a line or check in. So if all those people that are listening, definitely I encourage definitely checking in with those people, or just anyone really, just to let them know that you're there, because it goes a huge way. It goes a huge way for that person. So,
well, and that's I've had past guests mention how how fortunate we are to have the technology we have now and the communication systems we have now in the middle of this. I mean, I'm talking to you all the way in Australia, via FaceTime. It's very futuristic, and and we can stay connected and just have this big long chat. I mean, the great thing is like you can still talk to your partner and see her, as much as you'd like, and so I think these are things that really improve our mental health, vastly.
100%. And it's funny you say that, because I was actually throughout this, my partner's pregnancy, the biggest thing is I was missing out on all the check-in appointments, the ultrasounds, listening to the baby's heartbeat. But again, modern day technology, I was able to hear a recording of the baby's heartbeat that my partner sent to me.
That's awesome.
So although it's not as as great as the real thing, it was still fantastic and a great experience to be able to kind of witness that for the first time. But even just as little as talking, to my partner, and then kind of talking about ideas for the nursery and what to buy and what not to buy, and sort of then actually purchasing something online while talking to one another. That's also something that again, I'd rather be there for it, but
for sure,
it was still, given technology and how it is, it was still an amazing feeling to be able to do that and share that. And good on technology.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you, I have 2 kids, so as somebody who's been through that process twice, and I was in different states of my life, I really do hope you can make it back for the actual birth. It's I at least for me, it was probably one of the most amazing things I've ever been a part of, and I really can't even describe the overwhelming feeling that it is. Like it's just it's miraculous. I mean, that's the only way I can really put it. And there's so many emotions that go with the first time you see your kid and all those things. So I really hope they get you back here for that. That's something that they shouldn't deprive you of.
No, well, that's what the lawyers are really pushing for, is that, right. Given the circumstances, they've really actually pushed urgent on everything. So good. The lawyers have done a fantastic job. But as you touched on, I know I'll be fine, but it's actually a really difficult sort of situation to process. The thought of missing your first child, the birth of your first child, essentially. So there was actually a time it's probably about a month ago now, where I actually came to terms that I'm not going to be there for it. And that was a pretty tough day when sort of, because I'm one of those people that would rather do that than set myself up and be all optimistic and confident that I'm going to be there for it, for then not to be there for it. I think that initial shock of disappointment would be just, too much for anyone. Excuse me. So, setting yourself up for, not setting yourself up for failure, but kind of maybe being a little bit more accepting of the fact that it might not turn out the way you're hoping it to turn out for sure. In the early stages. And then having that nice surprise, of when you're there, I think is probably, better for myself personally. So I actually set myself up, about a month ago, and came to terms with the fact that I'm not going to be there for it. So that was quite tough to process and to go through. And, I'm having tough conversations with my partner and say, you need to start thinking about the nursery and getting things ready and sort of taking care of that. So that was kind of tough, because that's obviously something I really wanted to do, and to be able to share that, and, to miss the majority of the pregnancy so far has been hard enough. And then to try and set yourself up to be like, you're not going to be there for the birth. Not the most pleasant sort of thought, but one that I felt like I had to do. But now that the good news, or some positive news, and things are starting to sort of pick up a bit of steam, slowly that optimism is kind of coming back, like I might actually be there for it.
Right.
So try not to get too far ahead of myself, but at the same time, it certainly is looking a lot more promising, and probably the most promising outlook that it has been for quite some time. So, just to, as you said, I'm trying not to think too much about it, as crappy as that sounds, but it's hard not to. But just wanting to be there so bad, and being able to experience probably one of the most incredible moments of my life with my partner would be truly, given the situation in my history. Oh, that would be just the cherry on the cake, or the icing on the cake. It would be it would just be a fantastic kind of end to what has been a pretty terrible journey, so to speak. So
right. Well, geez, I really hope, I think in the future we'll have to check in with you again here on the show and just and see how things played out. And well, I mean, and you'll probably be, I'm sure, soon enough you're going to be down the street from me here, not too far away.
Yeah, well, I know. Maybe next time we talk, maybe I could be sitting next to you or across from you even, and we can have a chat. So
be filming you from a social distance, safe distance in my backyard or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah. No, that's great. No, so yeah, we'll definitely, I'll have to touch base. I mean, I'm probably going to touch base with you outside of the show anyway, and your partner, obviously we're friends too. So, I did try to fill some of her social time. I think it was a couple weekends ago now, we watched a movie on Netflix, Party, which is, which was actually pretty good. Like what we had, I had Alyssa just, like sitting there on a phone beside us, and Amanda and I sitting on the couch, and we just watched a movie together. So.
I actually asked her, I said, what was that like? Like, don't sort of, look into that too much further. Then she was like, it's exactly how it sounds. I sat there and watched a movie with David and Amanda, and I was like, cool.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Sounds fun.
You get used to it. Like I watch, I have another one of my friends, we watch Walking Dead together, and we're not caught up yet. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, she'll just, well, I'm sure you know Sarah, my friend Sarah, but we'll sit there and we'll just turn the cameras on and just talk to each other and complain about the show the whole time. And that's just how it works.
That's how it goes.
Well, speaking of lighthearted pandemic stuff, this is a good segue into my last section here. I have a little thing I do on the show, and it's really informal and not scientific at all, called the pandemic preparedness scale. And I just like to ask some lighthearted, fun questions about what we're doing here during the pandemic, because we're all awkward and strange right now.
Absolutely.
So here we go.
Well, it's funny you speak of awkwardness. I have no idea what to do with my hands the whole time I've been doing this. So I'm like this, or I'm like this. I just,
I
don't know.
I do the under the table thing here. Once in a while, I come up and do the whole speaker hand thing. And I'm
actually, what I should have done is just sat on my hands, just so they're not annoying or awkward.
Well, the funny thing is, YouTube personalities have to be like emphatic. Like they have to be like looking at you and like. That's the thing for YouTube people. But, so that's what I try to be. I don't come by it naturally, but at all.
I haven't sort of sensed any sort of awkwardness with you so far. So you're doing a fantastic job, my friend.
I'm doing okay. I'm pretty tired tonight, and it's hard to interview when you're tired. But I feel like I'm getting by. So we're going with it.
You're nailing it.
There we go. So question one: masks or no masks? Where are you at?
I myself haven't worn a mask.
Okay.
If I was in a situation where I was at risk, or I felt myself I was at risk or risking others, then for sure I would. But yeah, so far I haven't had an actual need to wear one at the moment, but that could change.
Especially if you're opening things up.
A lot of stores and a lot of Exactly. So, I'm pretty much non-mask at the moment. But if that does change and I feel like my health or my safety or others' safety or health is at risk, I will therefore definitely be wearing a mask.
Awesome. Deodorant or no deodorant? How bad do you smell right
now? So I have a routine where every morning I do put deodorant on, regardless if I have a shower or not. And funnily enough, I still, out of sheer habit of having to get up and go to work every single morning, out of sheer habit during this whole entire pandemic, I still subconsciously give myself a spritz of cologne. So I smell absolutely fantastic for my mum and dad and my dog Ellie. So I'm sure they all appreciate it.
Yeah. I guess if you're working with your dad, you have somebody who's in your space a little bit. So my wife just.
So when you're lifting like Yeah, especially when you're lifting like heavy roof materials and stuff like that, you're a little bit more kind of exposed. So
you're totally exposed.
Yes.
I was going to ask the next one, shave or no shave, but clearly you're not shaving, so that's excellent.
No, I haven't picked up a razor in quite some time.
and you know what? Like your beard really matches the mise en scene in your house. Like for people who are listening, was it a deer on the wall there? And it's like,
you know what,
very cabin looking.
Yes, it's a deer. I'm actually sitting in the man cave, and until you just picked it up, I didn't actually realize I was all very much matchy in here. But
you're mountain man.
No,
the mountain man look.
I know.
Yeah.
I should have worn my plaid. But yeah, no, I didn't realize that. I just wanted a nice quiet space without the interruptions of parents and pets. So I kind of bunkered down in the man cave here. So now that I think about it, I should have had my plaid on. So I'm kind of missing out on that.
Oh, no, you have an excellent look. I'm always fascinated by the look people choose to give me on the back. So some people just don't care.
Well, I did shower before this, so that's
that
a
much.
Huge step for the morning. So
thankfully the Zoom quality of stream is pretty low, so it doesn't reveal a lot anyway. You get away with
pixelated
things. Yeah, it's a little pixelated. Pants or no pants? And what is your apocalypse fashion? What do you think we should be wearing?
So I can 100% tell you that the days that I'm alone here, it's for sure no pants. But I am living with my parents temporarily at the moment, and so just to avoid the awkwardness in the hallway or in the stairs, 100% pants. My apocalypse attire is usually sweats and my Regina Red Sox hoodie. We're coming into winter now, so the nights and the early mornings are quite brisk.
You're in winter down there. Yeah, look at that, hey?
Yeah, we're just kicking in. So it's starting to get colder here, and because I am quite climatized to what was a very hot summer, the winter's kind of kicking my butt. So I don't know how I'm going to survive the next winter in Regina, Saskatchewan.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if Canadians can sympathize with your winter woes in Australia.
Oh, no. It's actually funny when I was living there and I would talk to my parents. Mum would be like, it's cold today. I've got my tracky pants, which is slang for sweats.
For sweats, yeah.
Oh, it's 12 degrees here today. And I'm just sitting there going, really? Like that's shorts and t-shirt weather for those in Saskatchewan. So I try and basically just tell her to come and talk to me when it's minus 50 with a wind chill of minus 60. So sweats and Regina Red Sox hoodie. That's my apocalyptic attire.
Awesome. Well, you did miss some pretty wicked winter here while you were gone. I'll tell you that. It hasn't been easy.
By all accounts, I skipped out at a good time.
You did, yeah. If there's any silver lining, that's the only one.
That's it.
What's your streaming service of choice? I don't even know what you have down there. I'm sure you have Netflix in Australia, but what do you have anything else?
Streaming service of choice. Netflix is always a good one. They've just put some new movies and stuff on there, which is great. I've always found that the Australian Netflix isn't as good as the American or Canadian Netflix. So,
really?
It's actually better in Canada at least. So Australia's got some good stuff on there at the moment. I have been streaming Dragon Ball Z, just the nerd coming out of me. So just been catching up on that because I haven't seen any of that since I was like 10. So I just had a brain fart almost just to start from season 1 and watch it all the way through.
Oh, that's awesome.
Disney Plus. They're always the good ones because I'm a huge superhero fan. So I love my DC movies and Marvel movies. So being able to watch the Marvel movies on Disney Plus is quite good as well. So I think I just put on the new the last Star Wars movie. So I'll have to watch that again. So they're the choices.
Awesome. So it's all about the nerd content. I'm with you on that.
100%. 100%.
what's the one thing you can't live without? And think of like an item, not so much a person or anything.
One thing I can't live without. Oh, I'm gonna have to say the pub.
The pub. Oh, there you go.
The pub.
You're missing that then.
Oh yeah. Just how easy it was to socialize with people at the pub.
Yeah.
You just basically give a time and a location, and you have an abundance of people going there. So now it's obviously much harder to try and socialize, but there's just any excuse to go for a beer at a pub and not drinking alone at home. So definitely the pub scene, the social scene. On a sunny Sunday afternoon on a patio in Australia, it doesn't get much better than that.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. For a nice cold drink.
Yeah. Exactly.
What's the best music to listen to during this pandemic?
Best music to listen to. I'm going to say something a little more upbeat and funky, just because it's very easy to fall into those kind of depressing kind of emotions given the situation. So I always find I vibe really hard with music. So what I listen to really depends on how I feel, because I'm fortunate enough that I don't have a real genre or whatever that I dislike.
Right.
I tend to have quite a huge taste in music, and so just because it's so easy to fall into that kind of depressive state, given the circumstances, I find something that's a little bit more energetic, a little bit more upbeat.
Totally. I'm with you on that.
I've been loving the slow kind of folky stuff a little bit at the moment. There's a few Australian bands that have just released some new music, which has sort of caught my ear and caught my attention. So
cool.
It's kind of in that genre as well. But see, I can't pinpoint a particular artist, but just anything sort of a little bit more upbeat, just to sort of kick you in the guts in the morning and sort of get your day started a little bit. So
that's right.
I have a home pod on my bedside table, so I just pop the button on, and a nice nice tune kicks in for the morning. So, but
awesome.
anything high tempo, I guess, and upbeat is a good tune to listen to.
Yeah, I relate to you on that. This is something I haven't never shared with anybody before, but the beginning of this whole thing, when it started, I'm big into film composition. Like I do some myself for work, but I also really love, I just love film scores, and I couldn't get the stupid Night King theme out of my head from Game of Thrones. And it's like the worst thing to have in your head, because it's just like this impending doom that's going on. And I love it. It's a great song, but it was just like, it's like all I could think about. I was like, man, stop thinking about this. Like, no, we're not all going to die. The Night King isn't out. It's not that dire. It's like just chill out, man. But
just for you guys in Canada, because it's the 4th of May, and may the 4th be with you. It's I guess like waking up and listening to the Imperial March.
Right. Yes. At least that's kind of upbeat and go get them. At least it's not, it's not quite as dire.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hugs or no hugs? Are you a hugger?
I was when I was younger, for sure. But as I got older, I got a little bit more independent.
Oh, there you go.
So I kind of grew out of the whole hugs. For sure, if I haven't seen someone for a while, or and meeting someone who I haven't seen in a bit of time or whatever, or a few weeks or whatever, for sure, a hug, like a greeting. But especially now, definitely not. It's kind of hard, because I kind of don't know what the world after the pandemic will look like in terms of handshakes or hugs or whatnot. With my partner, for sure, random hugs I love, but and that's probably the first thing I'll do when I see her is give her a hug. But
for sure. Oh, that would
that's about as far as it goes.
What are Australians like for that? Like, I know culturally, obviously, I have a South American family, so we're super touchy-feely. But what are Australians like for that? I'm just out of curiosity. What are you?
Oh, handshakes are a go-to. Okay. it doesn't matter gender, race, anything like that. Like a firm g'day handshake is
a g'day
paramount.
handshake, I like that.
But g'day handshake. But yeah, no, we definitely are more of an affectionate country, I guess. You do get a lot of those people that show affection in different ways, but my mum for sure is a hugger. She's a very affectionate person when it comes to stuff like that. So, I'd say there's a lot of hugs probably getting missed out at the moment throughout the country, but hopefully we'll see those come back. But I think similarity between Canada and South America, and I think they share those same traits and love a good hug. So
right on.
Yeah, it's more of the bro hug, I think, where you come in and you do the thing and then you bring it in. That kind of hug. I think that's more of the bro thing, the bro hug.
Bro it up.
We'll call it.
Yeah.
Bro it up.
Like it. One last question on this. What's your pro tip for survival? How are you going to get through the apocalypse?
Snacks.
Lots
and lots of snacks.
Good snacks.
I'd say keeping it in tune with your mental health. Even if you don't struggle or have never really sort of have any sort of issues with it, definitely keep in tune with it. Physical activity, that's huge. Get into the push-ups and the sit-ups. I was lucky and I knew this was coming, so I stocked up on a few PlayStation games.
Oh,
so gaming is always fun because you can do that with people as well. Yep.
Yes.
But yeah, in all seriousness, just keep your sanity in check and keep checking in with yourself and making sure give yourself just a hug yourself. But yeah,
hug yourself. I like it.
Hug yourself. Just stay in tune with yourself because keep checking in and making sure you're doing okay. I think that's the best advice I can give to anyone. And then once you've done that, for sure, check in on others and send them a social media hug or whatnot. So, but I think given the times and the crazy uncertainty, and it's going to affect a lot of different people in a lot of different ways, but we're all tuned with the same wiring. We all have feelings and emotions. So I think it's paramount to 100% keep those in check. And there's a slogan that's going around, and I actually do not know if this is like a global thing, but it's in Australia. It's we are all in this together. So it's definitely
you see that here too for sure. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's the COVID-19 slogan. So so we are all in this together. So we might as well stick together as best as what we can. And as I said, just keep checking in because you never know who might need it. And lots of hugs.
Awesome. For those listening, he self-hugged. So
you self-hugged.
The audio format doesn't allow you to see his hug. Awesome. Well, before I let you go here, we'll do a couple last things here. And I always forget to tell you, you did good at the scale. It's very scientific. You're surviving. You're thriving. Well done, sir.
Thank you. We're all doing our part, as I said. So we, it sort of makes it easier on everyone if we all do our part, because and then we're not spreading it, or we're not, making that curve again. So we're actually flattening it, and I don't think we'll ever be sort of rid of this virus. I think it's always going to be there, but I think we'll be able to live with it, and we'll be able to take the right precautions to continue to live in a normal, and I use this normal, normal life as best as what we can. We're all surviving. We're all doing what we can, and hopefully it continues to ramp forward, and we'll see what the future brings, my friend.
Yes, we will. Speaking of the future, then this is actually my last question then for you. Talking to your future self or anybody in the future, from where you're at now, what's your message for us?
I'd probably say, just don't take the even the smallest minuscule things for granted. You know, we've all lived in society with no restrictions, and then all of a sudden we've actually had some restrictions in place, and it's kind of just I'm going to say taken a lot of us by surprise, you know, with how much we actually took our normal world for granted. So you know, I think just don't take things for granted. Just you know, live your best life, and you know, try and do that on a daily basis. You know, don't be afraid to take risks, and you know, live your life, because you know, when you're bunkered down like this, and you know, there's certain restrictions in place, it's kind of hard to do that. So yeah, my best advice would be to live life and enjoy it. And for me personally, in the future, I hope you're still surviving with lack of sleep with a baby. So we'll see what that looks like.
Right. Yeah. Oh, trust me, you're going to have a few more grays in that beard of yours there, and
yeah. No, it'll be salt and pepper very soon.
Yeah. At least that fashion is in right now. People like the salt and pepper beard look. Yeah.
There's a few there as well. So
yeah. Cool. Well, Shane, I want to thank you for your time and coming on the show. Hope we didn't keep you up. Well, I guess no. It's really early over there, so never mind. We're not keeping you up. Yeah.
Sorry, I just lost my Beats. Actually, just run out of battery.
Oh my gosh! Look at that. So that is a good time to end.
My headphones.
This is the first time I've had a technical difficulty directly on the show, so that's pretty good considering I watch late night shows and it happens quite often actually for them.
There we go. It's a lot of technical difficulties, but we're back.
Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you for being on the show and for taking the time to let us know how things are going in Australia, and for sharing your story with your partner and your baby coming on the way, and again, you know, I'm sure everybody, I can speak on behalf of everybody in my house and people listening, that we really hope at the end of this story we get to hear about you being there for the birth and being with your family again.
Yeah, touch wood. It's you know, again, like everyone, you know, it's definitely been a journey, and you know, I can't wait to hear other people's you know, situations and how it's affecting different people with the future podcasts that you're doing.
Oh, thanks.
You know, I think it's an awesome incentive and an awesome and a really awesome job you're doing is you know, touching those people and giving them a chance to share their story, because you know, being able to share personally what's happening to them as well makes a huge difference. So and even just for me as well, just listening to all the other stories that you know, can you know, different situations, how it affects people. I think it's a really good thing. So I can't wait to hear more of it. And yeah, hopefully next time we chat, we'll be in a bit of a different situation again. So
yeah, well, and like I say, you know, in the future, if you're back here and you know, things are looking safe enough, maybe we'll have you here in person in the studio and having a little catch up that way. So my studio, my as you can see in the background, it's more of an arcade. I have arcade games everywhere, as you can see a little bit. But
we can game while we chat. Nothing wrong with that.
That's right. All right, man. Well, I'm gonna let you go. Well, I'm gonna hit stop at the very least. So again, thanks for coming on, and yeah, have a great day, man.
For sure. Thanks a lot, man, and stay safe to everyone out there.
Thank you. Right on. Thanks for checking out the Pandemic People podcast. If you're on YouTube, please feel free to like and subscribe. If you're listening on a podcasting app, I hope you follow me on there. Every Saturday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, we're releasing new episodes. If you'd like to reach out and provide some feedback, maybe you have some suggestions about the show, please email info@pandemicpeople.ca. Again, that's info@pandemicpeople.ca. Hope to see you next week. Remember, we are all pandemic people.